Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today for our new series, Finance Fridays. So I'm going to be here every Friday at 10:30, either for a live or a pre-recorded topic to talk about all things related to finances when it comes to your divorce or custody matters. So today, one of the things that most people ask when they're just starting to think about divorce are, what documents do I need to start gathering? So I wanted to go through the normal list of documents that you should start putting together as soon as you have considered moving forward with a separation or divorce, regardless of what process you ultimately choose. Feel free to leave comments on the chat if you have questions. I will try to get to those as well. But I want to make sure that we provide the information regarding documents you may need. So one of the first documents, some of the first documents you should start gathering will be things such as your bank statements. So I would recommend getting at least 1 year's worth of your bank statements. Sometimes you may need more than that, especially if you're going to be in contested litigation. You may have to go back as long as 3 to 5 years, but a year is a good starting spot. This will give you a good idea of what your budget has been over the last year and what the normal fluctuations are in your bank account. So bank statements are the first document. Second document would be any credit card statements. Like bank statements, I would suggest going back at least a year in any bank statements or credit card statements that you may have. If you have mutual funds, stock accounts, brokerage accounts, I would also recommend going back at least a year in those statements. Retirement documents, you should gather those as well. If I would say a year for those. If you happen to have any accounts that you owned prior to your marriage, then you may also want to go back to the month prior to you getting married so that you have a snapshot of your bank or your retirement statement value as of that date. That way you have an idea of what your estimated premarital interest in the retirement account may have been. So far we've talked about bank statements, credit card statements, brokerage and investment account statements, and your retirement statements. When it comes to creating or dealing with child support, it's best for you to have the following documents. You're going to need your income information. So this could be your pay stubs. It could be your W-2 for the last year. It could be, if you're self-employed, you may need to have tax returns. Generally, we are looking at the last 3 years or so of tax returns. And anything else that you may have related to income. So if you have a rental investment real estate that you may have, if you're receiving rental income, then that's going to be part of your income for child support purposes. So anything that you are that's generating income for you, it's important to have those documents. Other things that go into the child support calculation that you need to have documentation for will be if you or your spouse is paying for health care, so medical care, medical insurance, dental insurance, vision, dental, all of those things. It is important to know what your or your spouse's share, the amount of the premium that you are paying for your child or children. And the way you calculate that is looking at, so if you are the employer and you are sponsoring the plan, you would look at the family contribution and subtract out what the employee only contribution would be. And that gives you the difference in what can be attributed to the children's share of those health and medical expenses or insurance. So that's important for child support. Also, if your children are doing any sort of child care, whether that's daycare, before and after school, summer camp. If you have a nanny that you pay in order for you to go to work or go to school each day, then those childcare costs will also be included potentially in the child support calculation. Other documents that may be important would be anything related to private school tuition that you may be paying on behalf of your children, or any extraordinary medical expenses. So if your kids have asthma, are going to a mental health professional, if they have special needs and they have extraordinary medical expenses, those pieces of information will also be important in calculating child support. Those are generally the documents that I would recommend collecting. Additional things, if you want to be super safe, is the 3 years of tax returns, and anything related to your budget. So that's another important piece in if alimony or spousal support is going to be potentially a factor in your case, whether it is something that you may have to pay or something that you are requesting, it's important to put together a budget. And that budget is both what you have, what your average spending is now, or potentially what your average spending may be once you are living separate and apart, because your housing expenses currently are going to potentially be different than what your future housing expenses may be if you're not living together anymore. So having that budget will also be a very important tool when putting together a settlement proposal or counteroffer. So if you have any other questions about documents that are needed for your divorce, feel free to leave a comment or ask on the Facebook page. We're happy to provide that additional information. We're going to be coming back on every Friday at 10:30. So if you have questions, make sure you put them in our Facebook group or on our Facebook page, or let us know so that we can be sure to address those. The future topics of our Facebook Lives are going to be next week: how is child support calculated in Maryland? And there have been some fairly recent changes to how those calculations happen. We're going to talk about creative alternatives to traditional child support payments. We're going to talk about voluntary impoverishment, what it is and what does the court do about it in those child support cases, how you can modify an existing child support agreement or payment obligation. Then we're going to get into some things related to property division and alimony, such as who gets to keep the engagement ring if you divorce, how alimony is calculated in Maryland, and what to do about debts during your divorce. So those are some of the topics that are forthcoming in the next few weeks. Again, join us for our Finance Fridays so that we can give you some information on all things related to divorce. I'm Carrie Jacobson with Jacobson Family Law, where we keep the drama out of your divorce, and we hope you all have a great weekend. Bye-bye.